Hello students, welcome to the lecture on managing marketing channels. And after the lecture, we will be able to learn the following objectives. Understand the marketing channels, explain the types of marketing channel, discuss importance of marketing channels, define the channel management strategies, explain logistics and supply chain management in marketing channels, discuss the wholesalers and retailers, explain managing retail. Let us begin with an introduction to managing marketing channels. Marketing channel is an organized network of agencies and institutions which in combination perform all the activities required to link producers with users to accomplish the marketing task. This channel must be designed such that it delivers a level of value to the customer that creates a sustainable competitive advantage for the supply chain. This value can take many forms depending upon the requirements of the customer. The relationship between the value of the product and the shopping experience is particularly important, and the skill of the value chain is in the positioning of the total offer in a profitable way.
As a former partner executive myself for 6 years, our clients often ask me, Greg, what can I do to adapt my business to today's changing market realities? The world is changing. The markets are changing. And in the IT and communications world, we're seeing a lot of downward pressure, not only on price, but also on margin. And many vendors are finding it very difficult to differentiate technologically their products versus other products that are available on the market. I think there's 3 key areas where you can adapt your business to become more efficient and to become more profitable in a sustainable fashion. First, and most important, know the market segments where you add maximum value. Be very granular in the way that you segment the markets. Identify the high potential market segments where you can add value, not only through your business model, but also through your second tier, and quantify those to make sure that you have the coverage and capacity required to dominate that space. Don't try to cover every market and be everything to everyone. Know the segments where you add maximum value and focus only on those segments and go deep and wide. Secondly, know your business and don't try to be something that you're not. If you're a distributor, don't try to sell to the end user and play the role of a second-tier partner. Those are different business types. Distributors make money because they distribute very well. Resellers make money because they resell very well. So know where you make money, know how you make money, and focus on those areas where you maximize your profitability, and don't try to be something that you're not. And last but not least, adapt your go-to-market strategy and be more efficient with your sales resources. Perhaps leverage an inside sales organization to sell those products and services which are commoditized, such perhaps as maintenance or complementary integrated products. And use your outside sales force more efficiently for hunting and identifying new clients within your high potential market segments to grow your business and increase your profitability as fast as possible.
Let's discuss the meaning of marketing channels. The main purpose of trade is to supply goods to the consumers living in far-off places. As goods and services move from producer to consumer, they may have to pass through various individuals. Let us take an example. A farmer in US has an apple orchard. Once the apples are ripened, he sells the apples to an agent of Washington. The agent collects the apples from US, packs them and sells them to a wholesaler at Washington, Sabzi Mandi. The wholesaler then distributes them to various retail fruit vendors throughout Washington by selling smaller quantities. Finally, we purchase apples from those vendors as per our requirement. Thus, we find that while coming from the producer at US, the product reaches the consumers by passing through several hands like an agent, a wholesaler and then a retailer. All these 3 are called the middlemen. These middlemen are connecting links between the producers of goods on one side and the consumers on the other. They perform several functions such as buying, selling, storage, etc. These middlemen constitute the channels of distribution of goods. Thus, a channel of distribution is the route or the path along which goods move from the producers to the ultimate consumers.
What is a channel? I think the best way to think about it is that a channel of distribution is the pipeline of a product or a service from a producer to the consumers. It answers the question, the compelling but simple question, where will the customer obtain the product or service? It's a key part of any marketing strategy, very complex, extremely interesting, and channels of distribution are always changing and evolving. You'll hear a channel referred to in a lot of different ways, sometimes as place, sometimes marketing channel, channel of distribution, distribution system, different words like that. Please keep in mind that most of the time these mean pretty much the same thing. In any given industry, you may have a precise channel vocabulary you need to learn and use, but that's not rocket science. You can do that. Just keep in mind that it is the pipeline from the producer to the consumer. What does a channel do? Well, besides connecting directly with customers, it handles transactions. That's right. Gives the consumer the product or service and takes the money. It handles logistics, many times financing, and also many times post-sale service, support, and training. There are two main types of channels. A direct channel, of course, is when a producer and the ultimate consumer deal directly with each other. A great example of that is the Dell Computer Company. An indirect channel is when there are intermediaries, like distributors or resellers, in between the producer and the consumer. Well, why doesn't everyone just sell directly? That way you can cut out the middleman and keep all the money for yourself. Well, one reason is because producers lack the financial resources to market directly. It'd be very expensive to have stores all over the world, for example, if you were a consumer products company. But even if you had the money, you may be able to get greater ROI by investing your money in some other part of your business, like in research and development. And also, you may not be able to reach all of the customers you want. It just wouldn't be feasible without having some partners to help you. Here's an example. Procter & Gamble is one of the very biggest consumer product companies in the world and one of the most successful, and they still rely very, very heavily on their channel partners. And it's not just places like the big grocery stores and Walmart. Take this example from their business in Mexico. With a target market of low-income women and a product of single-use packets, a price point of around 19 cents US, for example, for a single-use packet of Head & Shoulders shampoo, Procter & Gamble's channel are the tiny neighborhood high-frequency stores, which worldwide are Procter & Gamble's biggest distribution partners. Many companies over time will grow from one channel of distribution to many channels of distribution. You may distribute your products on the web, via catalogs, and via stores, for example. Here's REI, a company many of us know, outdoor goods and apparel. They have their website, rei.com. They have REI catalogs, the famous REI catalogs, and also their REI stores.
Moving on further, let's discuss the types of marketing channels. Normally, goods and services pass through several hands before they come to the hands of the consumer for use. But in some cases, producers sell goods and services directly to the consumers without involving any middlemen in between them, which can be called as a direct channel. So there are two types of channels, one direct channel and the other indirect channel. There is just one direct channel, that is from producer to the consumer. There are many indirect channels, like the producer to the agent, to the wholesaler, and then to the retailer and then the consumer, producer to the wholesaler, to the retailer, to the consumer, producer to the agent, to the consumer, producer to the wholesaler, consumer, and then from the producer to the retailer to the consumer. Let us discuss about some of the common channels. Direct channel. In this channel, producers sell their goods and services directly to the consumers. There is no middleman present between the producers and the consumers. The producers may sell directly to consumers through door-to-door salesmen and through their own retail stores. Indirect channel. The producer is producing goods on a large scale. It may not be possible for him to sell goods directly to consumers. As such, he sells goods through the middlemen. These middlemen may be wholesalers or retailers. A wholesaler is a person who buys goods in large quantities from the producers, whereas a retailer is one who buys goods from the wholesalers and producers and sells to the ultimate consumers as per their requirement. The involvement of various middlemen in the process of distribution constitutes the indirect channel of distribution. Let's now discuss the importance of marketing channels. There are hundreds of thousands of marketing channels, intermediaries whose job it is to help move goods from the raw materials state to the producers and then on to the consumers. Marketing intermediaries are organizations that assist in moving goods and services from producer to the industrial and consumer users. They are organizations which are formally called the middlemen in the middle of a series of organizations that join together to help distribute the goods. A channel of distribution is the whole series of marketing intermediaries who join together to transport and store goods in their path from the producers to the consumers. A wholesaler is a marketing intermediary that sells to other organizations. A retailer is an organization that sells to the ultimate consumers. Channels of distribution enhance communication flows and the flow of money and title to goods. The latest trend is to try to eliminate wholesalers and the need for retail stores by selling over the internet. Why marketing needs intermediaries? Manufacturers do not always need marketing intermediaries to sell their goods to consumers and to the industrial markets. Intermediaries perform certain functions better than the most manufacturers. These functions include the transportation, the storage, selling, advertising, and relationship building. Companies often outsource distribution to others. Brokers are marketing intermediaries who bring buyers and then sellers together, and then they assist in negotiating an exchange but do not take title to the goods. How intermediaries created exchange efficiency? Intermediaries created exchange efficiency by decreasing the number of contacts needed to establish the marketing exchanges. Not only intermediaries more efficient, but they are more effective than manufacturers. Intermediaries were often better at performing their functions than a manufacturer or a consumer could be. Value versus cost of intermediaries. Some people think that if we could get rid of the intermediaries, we could greatly reduce the cost of the things we buy. The text uses the example of fiberfill to illustrate how marketing intermediaries facilitate the movement of goods. Values discussed include the value of not driving to Michigan to buy a box of cereal, the value of saving time and effort by not having to drive to a wholesaler's on the outskirts of town. Moving on further, let's discuss the channel management strategies. A sales channel is about where we are going to sell and how you are going to sell. In fact, this is about where our consumer is willing to purchase product, where the consumer expects the product to be available, what is the consumer's decision-making process regarding the category and product, and what is your positioning in the market. All the channel decisions should go hand in hand with segmentation, positioning, pricing, and other elements of the mix. Under channel management, the company deals with external organizations, channel members or partners to achieve its desired marketing goals and profitability. There are different types of channel partners like CNF agents, distributors, retailers, value-added resellers, brokers, etc. Each of the channel members' business goals will differ in their expectations of profitability, sales, ROI, long-term prospects, etc. The right channel strategy will help bring coherence and build value to the customer, channel members and the company. So a strong channel network has become a very important component in the corporate society. As discussed, there are many factors that influence channel management, but following are the broad factors that influence a channel design or a strategy. Understanding of the target group, target segments, the consumer needs and the consumer behavior. Understanding of the marketing mix and the product features, the brand persona, positioning, pricing, etc. Understanding of the retailer's needs and behavior. Channel goals and the functions to be performed by the channel. Legal issues, reach required. Logistics and supply chain management. Supply chain management is a cross-functional approach to manage the movement of raw materials into an organization, certain aspects of the internal processing of materials into finished goods, and then the movement of the finished goods out of the organization towards the end consumer. The role of logistics. Every organization has to move materials. Manufacturers have factories that collect raw materials from suppliers and deliver finished goods to customers. Retail shops have deliveries from wholesalers. A television news service collects reports from around the world and delivers them to the viewers. Most of us live in towns and cities and eat food that is brought in from the country. When we order books from a website, a courier delivers them to the door, and when we buy a mobile phone, it has probably traveled around the world to reach. Every time we buy, rent, lease, hire or borrow anything at all, someone has to collect it and deliver it to the door. Logistics is the function responsible for this movement. Logistics support operations. Every organization delivers products to its customers. Traditionally, these products are described as either goods or services. Then, manufacturers like Sony, Ford and Guinness make tangible goods, while the BBC, Qantas and Vodafone provide intangible services. But this view is misleading, and it is to be more realistic to describe every product as a complex package that contains a mixture of both goods and services. Logistics manages the flow of inputs from suppliers, the movement of materials through different operations within the organization, and the flow of materials out to the customers. Materials. We have outlined the role of logistics in moving materials, but what exactly do we mean by materials? Sometimes this is obvious. For example, when a power station brings coal from a mine, a farmer takes potatoes to a market, or a computer manufacturer delivers PCs to a warehouse. With tangible goods, it is easy to see the role of logistics, and even organizations providing the most intangible services move some goods around, perhaps paperwork or consumables. Often, the flow of materials is less clear. For example, when a television company delivers entertainment to its viewers, a telephone company provides a communication service, and an internet service provider, an ISP, gives access to the web, or a research company creates knowledge. The supply chain management. So far, we have described the movement of materials through a single organization. But no organization works in isolation, and each one acts as a customer when it buys materials from its own suppliers, and then it acts as a supplier when it delivers the materials to its own customers. For instance, a wholesaler acts as a customer when buying goods from manufacturers and then as a supplier when selling goods to the retailers. A manufacturer buys raw materials from suppliers, assembles these into finished products and sells them to the wholesalers. As a result, most products move through a series of organizations as they travel between original suppliers and the final customers. The basic structure. Every product has its own unique supply chain, and this can be both long and complicated. A supply chain in Cadbury starts with cocoa beans growing on the farms, and ends when hungry customers buy bars of chocolate. A supply chain for Levi's jeans starts with someone growing a field of cotton and then ends when we buy them in a shop. The supply chain describes the total journey of the materials as they move from the dirt to the dirt. Along this journey, materials may move through farmers, miners, processors, raw material suppliers, agents, component makers, manufacturers, assemblers, finishers, packers, logistics centers, warehouses, third-party operators, transport companies, wholesalers, retailers, and a whole range of other operations. The simplest view of a supply chain has a single product moving through a series of organizations, each of which somehow adds value to the product. Taking one organization's point of view, activities in front of it moving materials inwards are called upstream. Those after the organization moving materials outwards are called downstream. The upstream activities are divided into tiers of suppliers. A supplier that sends materials directly to the operations is a first-tier supplier. One that sends materials to a first-tier supplier is a second-tier supplier. One that sends materials to the second-tier supplier is a third-tier supplier, and so on back to the original sources. Customers are also divided into tiers. One that gets a product directly from the operations is a first-tier customer. One that gets a product from a first-tier customer is a second-tier customer. One that gets a product from a second-tier customer is a third-tier customer, and so on to the final customers. Wholesalers and retailers. Wholesalers and retailers are important middlemen who generally facilitate the flow of goods from the producers to the consumers. Let us study in details about them. Wholesalers. Wholesalers are one of the important middlemen in the channel of distribution who deals with the goods in bulk quantity. They buy goods in bulk from the producers and sell them in relatively smaller quantities to the retailers. In some cases, they also sell goods directly to the consumers if the quantity to be purchased is more. They usually deal with a limited variety of items and also in a specific line of product like iron and steel, textiles, paper, electrical appliances, etc. Let us know about the characteristics of wholesalers. The characteristics of wholesalers. The following are the characteristics of a wholesaler. Wholesalers buy goods directly from the producers or the manufacturers. Wholesalers buy goods in large quantities and sells in relatively smaller quantities. They sell different varieties of a particular line of product. For example, a wholesaler who deals with paper is expected to keep all varieties of paper, cardboard, card, etc. They may employ a number of agents or workers for the distribution of the products. Wholesalers need a large amount of capital to be invested in his business. The functions of wholesalers. Following are the functions which a wholesaler usually performs. The collection of goods. A wholesaler collects goods from the manufacturers or the producers in large quantities. The storage of goods. A wholesaler collects the goods and stores them safely in a warehouse till they are sold out. Perishable goods like fruits, vegetables, etc. are stored in cold storage. Distribution. A wholesaler sells goods to different retailers. In this way, he also performs the function of the distributor. Financing. The wholesaler provides financial support to the producers and the manufacturers by sending money in advance to them. He also sells goods to the retailers on credit. Thus, at both ends, the wholesaler acts as a financier. Risk-taking. The wholesaler buys finished goods from the producer and keeps them in the warehouses till they are sold. Therefore, he assumes the risks arising out of changes in demand, rise in price, spoilage or destruction of goods. Retailers. Retailers are the traders who buy goods from wholesalers or sometimes directly from producers and sell them to the consumers. They usually operate through a retail shop and sell goods in small quantities. They keep a variety of items of daily use. The characteristics of retailers. The following are the characteristics of retailers. They have a direct contact with the consumers. They know the requirements of the consumers, and they keep goods accordingly in their shops. Retailers sell goods not for resale but for the ultimate use by the consumers. For example, you buy fruits, clothes, pen, pencil, etc. for your use and not for sale. Retailers buy and sell goods in small quantities so customers can fulfill their requirement without storing much for the future. Retailers require less capital to start and run the business as compared to wholesalers. Retailers generally deal with the different varieties of products and they give you a wide choice to the consumers to buy the goods. The functions of retailers. All retailers deal with the customers of varying tastes and temperaments. Therefore, they should be active and efficient in order to satisfy the customers and also to induce them to buy more. Let us see what the retailers do in distribution of goods. Buying and assembling of goods. Retailers, they buy and assemble varieties of goods from different wholesalers and manufacturers. Storage of goods. To ensure ready supply of goods to the customer, retailers keep their goods in stores. Goods can be taken out of this store and sold to the customer as and when required. Managing retailing. It includes all the activities involved in selling goods or services directly to the final customers for the personal non-business use. A retailer is any business enterprise whose sales volumes comes primarily from retailing. The types of retailing. There are 8 categories. Specialty stores carry a narrow product line with a deep assortment within the line. For example, athlete's foot, tall men and the limited. Department stores, they carry several product lines. For example, Sears, JCPenney, Bloomingdale's. Supermarkets, they are relatively large, low cost, low margin, high volume, self-service operations that are designed to serve the customer's total needs for food, laundry and household maintenance products. For example, Kroger's, Safeway, Food Lion. Convenience stores are relatively small stores that are located near residential areas which are open for long hours 7 days a week. For example, 7 to 11. Discount stores, they sell standard merchandise at a lower prices by accepting lower margins and selling higher volumes. For example, Walmart, H-E-B, Kmart. Now in the end, let us summarize what we have learned in this lecture. A channel of distribution is the route or the path along which goods move from the producers to the ultimate consumers. A wholesaler is a marketing intermediary that sells to other organizations. A retailer is an organization that sells to ultimate consumers. Marketing intermediaries are organizations that assist in moving goods and service from the producer to industrial and the consumer users. Brokers are marketing intermediaries who bring buyers and sellers together and they assist in negotiating an exchange but do not take title to the goods.